I'm Gemma and this is my husband Paul, and we're both foster carers. I think initially we were a little bit anxious ourselves about going to panel. It sounded quite scary, but it wasn't at all. It was just a really friendly chit-chat with a group of people around a table. It was more of a celebration really of us being there and of us, wanting to become foster carers. The County Council offer a fair rate of pay, so we get paid dependent on our level of experience. So after you've done it for a while, then your level of pay will go up based on your experience and level of training that you've done. We've also got a network hub, which is a foster carer support group, and it's just an informal get-together. We feel so valued as a foster carer for Nottinghamshire County Council. Everyone's so caring and wants what's best for you as a family. The matching process is really careful, so they listen to our needs and, they would never think of placing a child that wouldn't fit in our environment. As a foster family, we try and just make it everyday, normal life, try and bring some stability and love to that child that's staying with us and give them experiences that perhaps they've not experienced before. We love going out on day trips together, and for example today we've gone pony trekking. Nottinghamshire's a great place to foster because we've got so much on our doorstep. There's so much that we can do. I feel really lucky that we're able to foster here.
There is no doubt that without the support from Shared Lives carers, Joe's family would probably have ended up in crisis. But with the support of Julie and Yvette, the family do not have to cope alone, and they now enjoy quality time with Joe on a regular basis.
Helen and Mike's care has been fundamental to Daniel's development, safety and happiness, and my peace of mind. They have been sensitive to Daniel's challenges and needs, as well as myself and my family. I am now widowed, and their support is utterly essential to me and my other son in making sure Daniel's needs are met. I'm continually in awe and appreciation of the work they do for my son.
Chantal loves visiting Hayley. She says it's fun and exciting. She gets to spend time with someone her own age. Hayley's such a lovely friend to Chantal. The family now have time to go out for meals, walk the dog and just chill.
Family members closest to Sarah have been able to gain great comfort and relief from the fact that Sarah has found a new family where she is happy and enjoying life to the full. The support that Sarah has received from Kelly and Ross have given her own family the time and space for them to better cope and manage through the difficult times.
Gemma's support means everything to Sophie and I. Sophie loves staying at Gemma's and does a lot of different things when she's there, and she's very helpful too. For me, I have more me time, and we would definitely be lost without the support we get from Gemma.
I'm Jane, County Enterprise Foods Team Manager. We were established in 1987, and the reason behind it was to make meals for our own Meals on Wheels service, but also to provide employment for people who would find it difficult to find work mainstream. So that is people with either a learning or a physical disability. We give them independence and we promote their well-being. We work alongside them, supporting them in the workplace, but also holistically. It isn't just coming to work and being a number, and they are very, very proud of the job that they do and how well they do it, and rightly so. They have won awards for the work that they do, and you know, it builds their confidence to feel valued.
I'm Jane and I work at County Enterprise Foods, and I've worked here for 29 years and I really enjoy it. I used to be a very shy person. I've grown a lot of confidence while I've been working here.
When you walk through the door, no visitor goes away without saying how nice the feel is here, because it's a very different kind of workplace to work where you are continually supporting staff as well as doing your job. The other part of our work is to provide a nutritious, well-balanced meal. We produce over 2,000 meals a day, and our team take great pride in everything that they do to get the best product.
The health and well-being of the customers is really important. We use locally sourced ingredients when we can, so we keep everything fresh. We've got 90% of the fresh vegetables here as well. In combination with the fresh cooked meats, we have a good nutritional balance to the meals, which is essential.
The food that we have can be traced back to the farm, so it very much is a farm to fork process. After the production of the meals, they come down to our distribution unit here at Rainworth, and we have 19 vehicles go out every day to deliver throughout the whole of the county. We have a freezer route, but the majority go out hot in our vehicles with the oven in the back of the van. The service we provide is essentially the good, nutritious meal that people get, and as well as the customer getting a hot meal or a frozen meal, whichever.
I welcome you all to this meeting, this virtual meeting, remote meeting of Children and Young Peoples. And as well as myself, Philip Owen as chairman, the other members that are present are Councillor Saddington, who is one of the two vice chairmen, Councillor Taylor, who is the other vice chairman, Councillor Samantha Deakin, Councillor Boyd Elliott, Councillor John Handley, Councillor Errol Henry, Councillor Paul Henshaw, Councillor John Peck, Councillor Liz Plant, and Councillor Richard Butler. And since our last meeting, John Handley has become a grandfather for the first time. So there is some good news during this dreadful time. So congratulations, John. It's aged you already, I think, but never mind.
Absolutely.
Oh, can I add to that as well? Because I've become a grandfather for the first time as well.
Oh, have you? Well, congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
Twice over, both daughters within a month.
Oh, goodness. Congratulations. Well, I've got 3 at the moment. I'm just grateful that these bubbles that the Prime Minister has set up doesn't apply to grandchildren when you've got a pair living at home, because I feared we might have to have them over the summer holidays. And 3 of them. No way. Anyway, we also have Marion Clay, Service Director, present today. And we also have Steve Edwards, Service Director for Youth and Families and Social Work, and Lawrence Jones, Service Director for Commissioning and Resources. And the clerk to the meeting is Martin Gapley. So, as I said, this is the first virtual meeting of this committee, to be held in line with the new requirements of the Coronavirus Act 2020. And if we experience any technical issues, please bear with us. There could well be some. I dropped out of a meeting of the HS2 Skills Board the other day while my tablet decided it was going to update itself, which was a bit of a nuisance, but I'm sure we'll get through. If we do lose any members temporarily, then officers will seek to assist in getting them reconnected as soon as possible, and they will inform the meeting if they're unable to rectify the problem and if we need to adjourn or pause the meeting temporarily. So with those introductions, can I move to item 1 of the agenda, which is the minutes of the meeting, of the last meeting on the 10th of February. 2020. Do I have your approval? I was going to say to sign them as a true record. I think it'll have to be an electronic signature if you approve them. Are you all happy to approve them?
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Yes, Philip.
Thank you. Richard, you're the only one. Richard Butler, you're the only one that I can't pin to my screen. So I'm assuming that unless you object, you are supporting things. But you couldn't.
Yes, I was supporting that, but of course I wasn't at your last meeting.
At the last meeting, I accept that.
Yeah, but no, I'm here and I'm listening to every word.
Good. Item number 2, apologies for absence. I've already indicated that Councillor Roger Jackson is unable to attend and that Councillor Butler is standing in as a substitute. If we accept that. Yep. Item number 3, we've got declarations of interest by members and officers, disclosable pecuniary interests and private interests. Are there any members or officers that have any declarations to make?
No.
No? Good, thank you very much. So we come then to the first substantive item, which is changes to the staffing establishment and review of recruitment and retention at Clayfield's House Secure Unit. And the papers have been circulated as is normal practice. And on page 3 of the report, which is page 11 overall, there are 2 recommendations which I'm happy to move.
Second those, Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions? Councillor Plant.
Oh, it's working. Brilliant.
It's working, yes.
So far, so good.
So far.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, obviously we fully support the recommendations, particularly the sort of quality assurance officer, which is a new post, I'm assuming, and obviously deemed necessary, and I'm again assuming that will improve the effectiveness and quality of care for the young people there. It says in the report that Clayfields has had a bit of a difficult time of late. I mean, I think previously it was always classed as excellent, and that hasn't been the case for the past probably a year or so. And obviously, I would imagine that it's never been easy to attract and retain staff in Clayfields. But a lot of work seems to have gone on in terms of looking at the job descriptions and clarifying the role and the accountability of the jobs there. So I'm hopeful that we will be able to attract and retain staff more easily, although I'm not so sure that just changing the role title will actually make that much difference. But I think the clarifying the posts and the roles with staff will certainly make a difference. I just wanted to know really what the situation. It concerns me that there are still a number of vacancies, but also that 3 of those are management positions. And I was just wondering if Steve is there, that he can actually bring us up to date on the vacancies. And also, I just wondered what the situation was at Clayfields in terms of how many young people are actually in there at the moment. Thank you.
Councillor Peck.
Yes, the report outlines action to improve recruitment and retention. Obviously, that's a good thing and very necessary. And we do understand the challenging nature of working in such an establishment. It's a tough job, no doubt. To what extent does recruitment and retention, how does it in Clayfields compare to other establishments across the country? Because the report alludes to the fact that contact has been made with other establishments. I'm assuming that measures have been put in place to establish the extent to which the measures that are being taken will have a positive effect. Is there a date by which there'll be a further review to see whether the measures that have been put in place are actually having or have had an effect? If Steve can perhaps expand upon that, please.
Any further questions? No, Steve Edwards, do you want to pick this one up?
Yeah, I can do. Yeah.
Please.
Okay, so to talk about the recruitment, I think it is a challenge nationally as well as locally to recruit staff to work in secure accommodation. And of course, you really don't know what it's like to work in secure accommodation until you start to do it. So some people come and they see it's for them straight away and they stay. Other people do come and decide for all the right reasons, actually, it's not for them. And if someone isn't fully committed to working in Clayfields, they shouldn't really be there. We did have a challenge with a number of vacancies. I think there were 27 around about this time last year, which sounds a lot, but it's a big staff group, is Clayfields, so it's not a massive proportion, but it meant there were a lot of agency staff and too much drift. And advertising through the normal social care channels wasn't really working as effectively as we'd want it to. So the staff at Clayfields, sounds a bit of a paradox, this, but it's a closed, secure unit, held a couple of open days. They invited people to come to the unit and into the office sort of side of the unit and gave them an opportunity to have a look round and meet with other staff face to face to talk about what it's like to work in Clayfields. And they were really, really successful. It was an absolute turnaround. And we have started to recruit now, and the recruitment position is getting much better. And the management posts were also filling at the minute. Morale did take a knock at the time of the Ofsted inspection. But oh, sorry, I thought Councillor Plant was. Sorry, putting your hand up then.
I should have muted. Sorry.
I think morale did take a knock at the time of the Ofsted inspection, when the grade dropped a lot. Didn't drop because of safeguarding. Children were still seen to be safe there. Things have got an awful lot better. I'm really pleased that Clayfields is one of only 2 secure children's homes in the whole of the country that hasn't, touch wood, been affected so far by coronavirus. Children have had it elsewhere. I think that's to the credit of the staff there who worked together and immediately started at the start of lockdown having temperature checks and hand washing coming in and out of the unit for staff. Unfortunately, there are very, very few visitors that can go there, but it's just my mum's in a care home and I can't see my mum. You have to have the same sort of principles to keep children as safe as possible. So morale, I think, has improved dramatically. I think Councillor Peck asked when it was going to be reviewed again. We can certainly bring a report back to committee, but I think Clayfields is probably one of the most reviewed places on the planet, actually. The CQC review it, Ofsted review it, colleagues from health review it. Ofsted are very impressed with the rate of progress. The CQC had some concerns a while ago about how staff were giving out medication. They were concerned, and we colleagues at Clayfields changed how medication's given out, and now the CQC and health colleagues are using that as national sort of good practice. So we have made a lot of progress. There will be another Ofsted inspection in the near future. Ofsted have cancelled all inspections of schools and local authority social care services, but I've also said that they're not doing it for secure homes, so they will come and have a look in the near future. So I think we should, we can bring another report back in 6 months' time or 3 months' time, whatever the councillors feel is the most appropriate. But fingers crossed, we are moving in the right direction. And I think there are 11 to 12 people in there now, like 11 to 12 young people. So we're catching up now might be more than that actually. It might be. I'll let you know, Councillor Plant, exactly how many, but
Thank you.
We're fulfilling our youth justice contract, and welfare beds are getting full as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't think we want a report back or a further review or a further report back until at least after any upcoming Ofsted inspection, which would then inform committee discussion. So I think we need to leave it relatively fluid and wait and see what happens as far as that is concerned. Anyway, the recommendations have been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of physical hands as to whether you are in agreement? Thank you very much. That is unanimous. Lovely. The next item on the agenda then is adaptation to a local authority foster home. Again, you've had the report and you have got two recommendations set out on page 15 of the committee pack, and I'm happy to move those recommendations.
Second those, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions? No, in which case, can I?
Oh, Errol.
Councillor Henry, did you want to comment?
Yes, just a query really. In paragraph 12 and 13, there's some discussions about discussions about caseload management and so forth. I just wanted to know if what impact, if any additional social work posts will have on the agency staff.
It's on the wrong agenda.
I don't think that's the correct agenda. Statutory and policy implications and data protection.
I jumped, sorry. I've turned the wrong page. Sorry. I get it.
So that's it. You're happy, are you?
That's
so the report has been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, all those in favour, please?
Yeah.
That is unanimous again. Thank you very much.
Oh dear. Turn the wrong page.
Yes, it happens to us all. I've got umpteen sheets here in front of me. Right, the next one, changes to the staffing establishment in the Youth, Families and Social Work Division. Again, you've got the report in front of you, and there are two recommendations, pages 21 and 22 of the report, which I will move.
Second those, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, any comments or questions?
I'm on the right one now.
Yes.
Sorry.
Right.
Chair, I wanted to raise just a query really on the bit around additional social work services posts.
This was paragraphs 12 and 13.
13. That's correct, yeah.
13, yeah. Thank you.
I just wanted to know really, because I know there's comments about the amount of agency staff that we employ and the expense that it incurs. I just wanted to know whether or not the additional social work posts that we're thinking of approving today, what impact that will have on those posts, if there are going to be any impact in terms of reduction of having agency staff. That's all. Steve.
Okay, do you want me to pick up on that?
Yes, please, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay. Well, I mean, the ambition obviously is to have our own permanent, experienced workforce, and the more that we recruit our own staff, the less reliance there will be on agency social workers. Of course, we are working in strange and unusual times now. So I make a couple of points. When we do appoint staff, we tend to appoint newly qualified social workers fresh out of university. And that's what we've done currently. And we have been really, really successful in that. And they're absolutely excellent colleagues. Of course, because they're fresh out of university, they haven't got a lot of experience. And it's always difficult, isn't it? Starting a new job, finding your feet. It's incredibly difficult now, I think, working in child protection, when you're finding your feet sat in your kitchen or your spare bedroom without the same number of colleagues around. So I think linking those up with practice consultants and experienced social workers, some of them agency, is absolutely what we're doing now. In Nottinghamshire, we've also increased our level of monitoring of children through the COVID period. So we make sure that all children, every single child that's open to a social worker, is contacted at least once a week, and a lot of them more frequently than that, which is working really successfully. A lot of those visits are also now face-to-face visits with the appropriate level of PPE or using social distancing. And of course, people will have seen through the media and read about the worry that there is nationally about hidden harm. Yeah, so I'm still optimistic that as we get through this, we will see a peak in referral. I think things will go up, we'll get busier, of course, as the lockdown sort of lifts, and perhaps more children will come into care. So all of that is, I'm hoping that the agency numbers go down. I think we've from a safeguarding perspective, we've got to be a little bit cautious and careful about getting rid of a lot of our very experienced agency workers because now is a very critical safeguarding time. Sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Peck, I think you indicated.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Plant.
The report makes clear that some of the caseloads or have been unacceptably high. I think 27 is one instance that's given there, and the report suggests that the average ought to be round about 16, or a typical caseload ought to be round about 16. Steve, are you optimistic that the measures that are being put in place, and notwithstanding this possible surge in numbers that you've just referred to, do you think we can get that down to a point where nobody is taking on an unacceptably high number such as 27?
Yeah, I think so. So we've already made a lot of progress with our caseloads, and they have come down to within the sort of area that we're much happier with. I mean, that said, Councillor Peck, there are always going to be occasionally some cases that are going to get high now and again. And sometimes that can be because the team manager said to a social worker, you need to close 4 of those cases, and they haven't got around to doing it, and they've got allocated, some more work. So there's occasionally things like that. But I'm fairly confident with the work that we're doing that caseloads will be managed, but we'll have to carefully manage how we support our newly qualified staff during this period, how we ensure that children are seen as regularly as we want them to be, and how we manage any potential increase in referrals at the end of lockdown. At the minute, I think we're doing lots of contingency planning and moving forward with a degree of sort of caution. So yes, I think we can do it, but none of us have ever worked in a situation like this before.
Councillor Plant and then Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah. I'm particularly pleased in terms of the recommendations about the advanced practitioner posts, because as it says in the report on paragraph 14, I think it's really crucial, and Steve has mentioned, obviously to keep experienced social workers actually in the field doing the job at the chalk face, rather than perhaps going for management posts. So I think that this is these posts are definitely crucial, and also to offering them an alternative career plan. So I just wanted Steve to clarify. So we are establishing 2.5 advanced practitioner posts subject to job evaluation, and then we're also approving another 11. So is that the total of those posts, or are there more? I mean, that would only make 13.5.
Yeah, that's on top of the practice consultants that we've already got that will continue to operate.
How many got? Sorry. What sort of numbers?
There are about 18 and 19, I think, at the minute, social work practice consultants, plus the 11 that we've got, well, the 13 and a half that we're also going to appoint to. So I think it is a move in the right direction, actually. And you're absolutely right that the more experienced staff that we have that want to stay on the front line, the better. And this is a real important step in the right direction to do that.
Okay.
Okay, Councillor Taylor and then Councillor Henshaw.
Thank you, Chair. It was partly picking up on Steve's response to Councillor Peck's question. Am I right in thinking that the figures as high as 27 are more around the leaving care posts and rather than caseloads at that level across the entire establishment? Am I right in thinking that there is a difference? And although notwithstanding that we will experience peaks and troughs in caseloads, that those figures pertain to the leaving care rather than the entire establishment?
Yeah, you're right. Leaving care tends to have the highest caseloads, and so in the child protection team, it would be a rarity for someone to have so many caseloads. And the caseloads at the minute are really good, actually. You know, the caseloads are equitable across the service and balanced. And I'm just keeping everything crossed that we continue to manage to do that. And support all our sort of colleagues as we move out of lockdown. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Henshaw.
Thanks, Chair. In relation to the similar point on the personal care and leaving care, it does indicate in the report, and it mentions to early allocate for a personal advisor for 16 and 17-year-olds. Could the officer give me an indication of what actually early allocation of a support worker is? I mean, to me, it seems a bit sort of cloudy depending on your age. I mean, obviously, it's going to be very traumatic for somebody who's coming to the end of their support and their end of care. So we really need to, intervene at the earliest stage possible. And I just wondered if it would be possible to do a case study on actually how when you're coming up to leaving care, the actual process, how it actually happens, obviously with confidentiality. But to me, I'd be very interested to see how that process unfolds to help somebody that's coming to the end of their care. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, well, Councillor Henshaw, I mean, perhaps not now, given the situation that we're in and the experience that you had yourself, but it'd be great if in the future, when the lockdown's lifted, you could shadow a looked after social worker and a PA with a couple of 16, 17-year-old children, so we can see how firsthand we move them forward into adulthood. So, because I mean, you have to have a social worker legally until you're 18 if you're a looked after child, and then you have to have legally a personal advisor when you become a care leaver.
Right.
But the last thing you want to do is just have that switch over on someone's 18th birthday.
Yeah.
So we start the two colleagues working together with the young person so that there's a smooth transition into adulthood, and then there's a seamless handing over of responsibility, and it does actually work really well. For those couple of years ago, committee gave approval for targeted PAs to focus on children in residential care, because they're sometimes the children that really hit a wall when they reach 18, because they're in very supported and actually very expensive accommodation. And then get 18, Ofsted very clearly say, if you're over 18, you can't stay in the children's home, so they have to go sort of elsewhere. And sometimes that can be your own flat and, or supported accommodation. And what we try to do is smooth that out as much as possible. And of course, now which is one of the reasons why we're increasing the establishment for care leavers, is that we do support them now to 25 rather than 21. So there's that extra sort of period of time that we work with people, and we're putting regular calls into those as well now. But the idea of shadowing, I think, would be really, really helpful for you, and it'd be great that the PAs and the social workers appreciate that as well.
Okay, thank you for that, Steve. I'm sure Councillor Henshaw will want to take you up on that offer when it's possible, and indeed any other member that wishes to do that, I'm sure, could be accommodated. Councillor Saddington, you indicated that you'd like to speak.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. That transition is something that Councillor Plant and myself referred to after we'd been to the residential home. I think it was on Newbury Road in Newark, because they have a special building somewhere near Peterborough where they do their transition. And Councillor Plant and I raised it because we weren't quite sure what we offered, and we were assured that they did, but we've never, I think Councillor Plant would probably agree, we didn't have a full explanation of how it's done in relation to this private company, to be fair, Inspire, who take people to Peterborough. But we did raise it in our last visit, that we felt this was very important when the children in our care, be it in private or our own, do have that transition, because it's very difficult. And it was pointed out by one of the people in the home that they don't actually have money. If you're a child with a parent and you're in your own home, if you run out of money, in most cases you can go and ask your parent just to help you out. But these children don't have anybody that they can actually rely on, and they were saying that was one important factor, that they needed to know where they could go. Now, presumably Steve can answer, would they go to the social worker who was looking after them, or the PA who was looking after them? What would they do in transition if they needed money for something and they ran out? And they actually cited rent.
Okay, well, I think one of the things we should remind ourselves of is the work that we've done in developing a local offer for looked after children and for care leavers. So this council was the first county council to agree that the council tax exemption would apply to all care leavers, and councillors worked and developed that with the district councils, where I think we're a really good corporate parent. Actually, the other thing that we've done as a county council with the districts is our care leavers have free access to district council leisure facilities. They've all got an allocated PA that they go to. We do have to provide financial support for them. My colleague Lawrence Jones, and in his service, we commission a whole range of supported and semi-supported accommodation. For the most vulnerable children, we also spot purchase and commission bespoke packages of support. So I think we do quite a good job of supporting our looked after children and our care leavers. And of course Mary and Clay led on the developing the black and care leaver strategy. So one of the good things about it is now is we're working across the council to support care leavers, and with our partners, and particularly the district councils. And again, an opportunity to see some of that firsthand. I absolutely wouldn't want to send our care leavers to Peterborough. The Nottingham children, they should be supported in Nottinghamshire, as close to their communities as it's safe for them to do so, really. And we've got some really good local practice.
Thank you. Can I just come back on that, Steve? I wasn't saying that we didn't have a good facility. I was just saying that this was one thing they actually mentioned, and it's never been mentioned to us, and we didn't pick it up, to be fair, that is what happens in our own home with the children as they become care leavers. So that's fine. I was just clarifying it. I think Councillor Plump was nodding, so she must have agreed with me.
Good. Thank you very much for that. I think we've had a fairly detailed discussion. Members can rest assured that myself and two vice chairmen do keep considerable political oversight over the issue of caseloads. I certainly have been there in our last administration when there were great difficulties in terms of caseloads, and it's something that I've been very keen to keep an eye on and ensure that if caseloads are starting to increase, then appropriate action is taken. And I've also been keen to keep experienced staff on the front line, hence the advanced practitioner posts which you're being asked to approve this morning, and I think we can take great credit from that. I, like the service director, have a fear that when the lockdown is over, if ever we can see that far ahead, there will be a lot more children who will need to almost certainly come into care. And whilst I don't like using agency staff, that is the lesser of the evils. Our number one priority has got to ensure that children, young people, are protected and safeguarded. So that will be always the number one priority, even if it means employing agency staff, which we all know are far more expensive. But I think you'll agree, well, I hope you'll agree, we're doing an awful lot to maintain and enhance our own in-house provision, and I think that is very important. So you've had the recommendations moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, all those in favour, please? I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is item number 7, establishment of a managing allegation service within the Children and Family Services. And again, you've had the report circulated, and you have one recommendation on page 28 of the papers, which I'm happy to move.
I'm happy to second, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions, Councillor Platt?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I certainly welcome the recommendations in this report. As the report says, we've had a lot of experience in terms of historical sexual abuse, and we have had a sort of temporary service dealing with that. So I think it makes sense to, I think it's a sort of a bit of a sad reflection of the society that we're in, but sexual abuse, historical or recent, is not going to go away. So I think it is to be welcomed that it's making this service permanent, and we fully support the recommendations. I'd just like to ask Steve, in terms of have we had many recently? Have we had any historical allegations coming forward, or has that sort of gone quiet now? Thank you.
It's reducing. It's nothing like it was a few years ago. I guess we're having what you'd anticipate would be an acceptable level of historic concerns, but massively lower than it was during the ICSA inquiry and before it.
Good, thank you. Well, I think that's to be expected, and hopefully we'll get to the end of all this in the not too distant future. It's a very sad chapter in the history of Nottinghamshire County Council. The report has been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, those in favour of the recommendation, please? All in favour?
I can hear you, Philip, but I can't see you.
Well, put your hand up then.
No, I've gone.
That's
off
it.
the screen.
That's unanimous. Thank you very much. I can see you, Sue. Don't worry. That's the main thing.
We're all back.
We're all back.
Yeah, we're back now.
Oh, so it wasn't just me.
No,
You started it, Sue. It was your fault. I think we're all back. Richard, I can't see you. Richard Butler, are you back?
Yes, it all frozen, but I think we're all back.
We're all back. Okay. Anyway, in case anybody missed it, the recommendation is set out on page 35, which I'm happy to move.
I'm happy to second.
Thank you. Any comments or questions?
Sorry.
Councillor
8, Liz. 8, yes, yeah. No, sorry, yes, I do. Yeah, we fully support the recommendations. I think these are extremely expensive and complex placements that we're probably talking about here. And I think it's really important that we obviously get the best care for the child, the young person involved, and also obviously get the best value for money because of the huge costs that these placements actually invariably do cost for the local authority. So yes, we fully support the recommendations.
Thank you very much. Well, I don't think there's any further comment needed. So can I have a show of hands? All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? No, thank you. That's carried unanimously. The next item, item 9 on the agenda, is changes to children's social care regulations in response to COVID-19. Again, the report has been circulated and there is an appendix 1. The recommendations are actually set out on page 40. 2 recommendations there, which I move.
Second those, Chair.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Councillor Plant?
Yeah, again. Yes, thank you. Yeah, obviously we recognise that these are exceptional times, without a doubt, and the reason for this recommendation. I'm just not sort of clear how long it will stay in place, because if we go back to paragraph 3 on the report, it says the amendment regulations came into force 24th of April and remain in force until the coronavirus renewal date on the 25th of September 2020, though they will remain under review. So I'm just not clear about that, and I'm wondering if we sort of put a timeline on this and the fact that it comes back to committee perhaps in 6 months' time, if this is still in place. And my other is a query. I'm assuming that is the only amendment that we're looking to change. But if you look further down the page of Appendix 1, it says visits to a child. Timescale for visits have been relaxed to as soon as reasonably practical. Consideration has also been given to the social distancing rules, allowing for visits to a child to take place by telephone video link. Well, we have been doing that during the COVID crisis, as far as I know, but that isn't included here. So I just wanted some clarity on that. And again, I know the timeline will depend very much, obviously, on the COVID crisis, but I think it's important that we keep on top of this and we do have a timeline here, if possible. Thank you.
Okay, Steve, do you want to make any comment on that?
Yeah, I can. So the government will look at the regulations in September, and and it's up to them nationally. They decide whether to extend or not. I'm absolutely clear that in terms of the connected person part of the legislation, that we're only going to use that as an absolute last resort. Mm-hmm. So if we haven't got anywhere else to place a child, we'll use the this application of the connected person, and we'll also have already done checks on those colleagues who are putting themselves forward as temporary foster carers. So it absolutely isn't a way of trying to save money, not use experience sort of foster. It's the last resort should, what Councillor Owen talked about, there be a significant increase in children that need accommodation. In terms of visiting, we've increased our contact to weekly. So the visiting regulations for looked after children are once every 12 weeks is a minimum, and we're still doing that, but what we're doing is contacting children on a minimum weekly basis. So we haven't used that bit of the legislation. We haven't changed any of the other timescales, and we don't want to. We're going to continue to meet the standards that's expected of us throughout all of it. We're going to, but we do think that there's some possible potential in using the disapplication of connected person for temporary foster carers. So that's what the only thing that we want to do.
Good, thank you very much for that. I think it's an indication of the strength of what we have on offer here in Nottinghamshire, that we're only seeking disapplication for one of these out of the whole lot, and then we're not anticipating having to use it, but it's there if we do need to. And the people that we would like to use, if the need arises, I believe, are employees of the county council, so that we already know these people. Clearly there will be additional background checks, but nevertheless they will be known to us. So that will only be in case of an emergency, and who knows what's going to happen. So the report has been moved and seconded. Can I have a show of hands, all those in favour? Thank you very much. That's carried unanimously. The last item on the agenda is the urgent Chief Executive's decision, early years funding for the private, voluntary and independent childcare sector during the COVID-19 pandemic. There is one recommendation set out on page 46, and the actual details of the urgent decision are set out on the yellow pages at the end of the report. I'm happy to move the recommendation.
I'm happy to second them.
Any comments or questions, Councillor Plant?
Yes, thank you. Yes, obviously, it was the right thing to do at the time, without a doubt. I'm just wondering if we have any data or in terms of what the take-up of that was, and also, well, basically, what numbers actually of the critical workers and vulnerable children took up these places on offer in the PVI sector. Thank you.
Yeah, we do have that information. There were 139 early years settings remaining open during the Easter holidays. Funding helped 416 children access childcare during Easter, of which 370 places were for children of critical workers and 46 were for vulnerable children. Okay, I think that answers your question, Councillor Plant. I hope it does anyway.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, the report has been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please show. That's carried again unanimously. This is getting to be a habit. You agreeing with everything that we do? I must be losing my touch somewhere, but still. Thank you very much. I think it's gone reasonably well. I hope we don't have to have too many like this, but who knows?
Sure.
Councillor Elliott, you're wanting to speak, and then Councillor Plant.
Obviously, it's difficult at the moment. Will we see a work programme?
That's what we're going to have.
We haven't got a work programme at the minute. Democratic Services advised against that. I think they are reviewing it. I don't know whether, Martin, you wish to make any comment on that.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, the work programme is being reviewed due to the disruption of the timetable of meetings. So once once we're sort of back in train and having regular meetings, the work programme will reappear, and the departmental officers will have scheduled in items as they normally do. So yes, it will come back. It obviously isn't here at the moment, with not knowing in terms of the next couple of months what meetings we're going to have.
Okay.
Okay, I'm anxious not to overburden officers at the minute with having to produce a lot of committee papers, because as you can appreciate, they really are very, very busy, and I'm sure you understand that in the present climate, they need to be dealing with the frontline services to make sure that everything is up and running. But certainly, as soon as humanly possible, we shall get back into a more normal routine. even if it has to be done like this remotely, which I think has gone reasonably well. And I thank you very much for your cooperation. I thought we were going to have one little bit of difficulty when Councillor Saddington fouled up the works, but we got through that and we've got to the end very satisfactorily. So thank you all. Nice to see you all again, and no doubt we shall be meeting like this more regularly, at least for the next few weeks. So have fun for the rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.